Okay.
This is J.J. Pianki of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign interviewing Mitch Loyd on August 9th, 2017 at the University Library. Where and when were you born?
Where was I born? Pittsfield, Illinois, on September 12th, 1979.
Who are or were your parents, and what are or were their occupations?
My parents are Roger and Donna Loyd. My dad was an insurance adjuster, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Do you have any siblings?
I have an older sister and a younger brother.
Okay, and who were they, and did they serve in the military?
My sister is Heather, my brother's Kyle. No, neither one of them served.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
I had just graduated from college, so it was my right out of college job.
Okay. What branch of the military did you serve in?
Army.
And you enlisted?
I did. I was enlisted, yes.
Why did you choose the Army?
I wanted to be an MP, and I just figured that would be the best branch to serve in.
Okay. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
Not much. I mean, it was I left in July of '04, got to Fort Leonard Wood, and started basic training in August. And it was pretty, standard stuff. Wasn't anything real. It was basic training in the Army, so, it was just going through all that. The first few days, or few weeks were the toughest, because, obviously you're just getting there, and it's stressful at the time, but once you get into the groove of it, it's just like anything else. It was just training, and you went through it. And then I graduated in December of '04.
Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
Yeah, I mean, the drill sergeants they're tough, very tough, but fair. They wanted you to succeed. They were, they could be, they had to break you down to build you up, so it wasn't like they were your friends or anything, but it was fine. They were fair. I don't remember their names, though. It's been so long ago.
Can you give an example of breaking you down to build you up?
Like when the first day you get off they call it the cow car, and they just do the standard stuff that you see in the movies where they scream at you and yell at you and call you every name in the book. And then this is basically just helping to take away your self-identity and to build you up into a soldier. So it's just stuff like that.
Okay. Did you receive any specialized training, and if so, what?
No, I didn't realize. It was just basic training, and I was an MP, so I just went through standard military police training.
After boot camp?
Yeah. It was a one station. I did all of mine at Fort Leonard Wood. Some people do basic at one post, and then they go off to wherever their specialized training area is. Fort Leonard Wood's the home of the MP Corps, so I was able to do both basic training and MP. And it's called AIT, Advanced Individual Training. It's where you learn how to be whatever your MOS, which is your military occupational specialty. They train you to be whatever you would be. My case was an MP. If you're an infantry, you go to Benning. If you want to be a medical personnel, you go to St. Houston in Texas. So that's where. And then they just trained you how to be. I was a correctional, so I worked in corrections. So trained you how to be a correctional officer.
Gotcha. How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
Fine. I mean, I was older, so I was 24 when I went in, so it was a little bit easier for me then because I'd already been through college, so I'd already gone through all that stuff, minus the physical training when I was in school. The physical training was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything too difficult. I adapted, fine, I guess. The food was pretty good, so I really can't complain about that. Sleep first was hard. I mean, the first month or so, you're very, very tired, but once you get into the groove of everything, you go to bed. Well, I did fairly quickly, and getting up at 4 a.m. was hard, but you get used to it. It's kind of like anything else in life.
Where were you stationed?
After graduation, I was at what's called Joint Base Lewis McChord now, but it was Fort Lewis, Washington, just outside of Seattle. I was there on active duty. That was my active duty station, my one station from either January of '05 to the end of May, beginning of June of 2008. So I was there for almost 3.5 years.
And so that was your only duty station?
That was my only duty station for active duty. The MP for correctional facilities are very small. At the time, there was only 5 places you could go. And then there's a couple overseas, but those were very small. So chances of you staying at one station for a long time were pretty good. I had the opportunity to go to Gitmo, but by the time that opportunity came around, I was almost getting ready to leave. I had less than a year left, so I declined that opportunity. I just didn't want to deal with it at the time. I didn't want to have to separate from the Army from Cuba and go through all my stuff and all that stuff. So I just said, no thanks. I have less than a year. I'll stay here in Seattle. And that's what I did. And I came back here.
Okay. So what were your duties in terms of working as an MP?
Like I said, I worked as a correctional officer in a military prison. Obviously just doing standard correctional duties, escorting inmates, working the blocks, doing searches for contraband, enforcing the rules of the facility. Excuse me. So I did that. I also was our battalion's mail clerk, so I went through postal training, did the mail. I did escort duty, escorting inmates to like doctor's appointments. Didn't do too many court dates, but just mostly doctor's appointments when they were getting ready to leave the facility. They had an opportunity to go to the PX to buy clothes or something, and then escorting them to wherever they were leaving from, which was usually just drop them off outside the gate of Fort Lewis, and that was it. So I did that for 3.5 years.
What kind of inmates were generally in the facility?
They were it was a minimum base. Army doesn't have minimum. They have medium and maximum. But their medium was really their minimum. They were there for less than 2 years. Mostly they were sex offenders. That was our largest percentage of inmates. There's people in there for child crimes, child porn, stuff like that. But mostly they were in there just for like desertion or minor assaults and batteries, things like that. They weren't the hardest of the hardcore. We didn't have, if you committed a felony, basically in the military, you would go to Fort Leavenworth, which is the maximum security, the disciplinary barracks. Anything under that, you went to a medium security facility. So like I said, rape, well, it depends on sometimes what kind of sexual assaults. Some went in there for that and got less than 10 years. Like I said, some crimes against minors. Mostly it was people who got in trouble when they were either overseas or they just did minor crimes. Misdemeanors that didn't rise to the felony level.
Right. Okay. What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
I didn't really form too many because I knew I wasn't going to be there, and it's very transitory. I got along with coworkers, and I made a few friends, but mostly just people who were there. I was older than everyone, mostly too. These were kids, 18, 19-year-olds, and by the time I got into there, I was in my mid-late 20s. I didn't really want to hang out with them. I was older, and I just pretty much did my own thing. Went to work and went home.
Why did you join the service?
I thought it looked good on my resume. At the time, I wanted to be a police officer, but everyone, even when I was graduating from college, everyone had a bachelor's degree. So I wanted something that would separate me from the pack, and I wanted help paying off my student loans from college. So that's why I did it.
Okay.
And then even though I'm not in that field anymore, that's why I originally did it.
Gotcha. How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Oh, I was in the States, cell phone call. I didn't really, when I was on active duty, I never deployed, so picked up the phone.
Right.
That's it.
What did you do for recreation when you were off duty?
I didn't know. Well, mostly I was just at home. I'd read, watch TV, play video games. Occasionally we'd go into like Seattle and go down to Pike's Place or someplace like that. Movies, just general stuff.
Gotcha.
Everyone else does.
When you were in the service, did you read for pleasure, and if so,
Yes.
what?
I read all the time. I like the spy thrillers, the Tom Clancy type books. Yeah, and I read all the time. I mainly read those, some like nonfiction history books. I like to read about history. So, but yeah, that was pretty much all I read was those type of
That
novels.
genre.
Yeah, that genre.
What particular book would you say influenced your life the most, and why?
None. I just read for pleasure. I don't read for. I never really had a book that influenced me or anything. I didn't read much when I was growing up in junior high or high school. I grew up in the country, so I played outside a lot and had friends. But mostly when I read, I just read something that's just and for entertainment, and didn't look for any big life lessons. So I didn't really have any books that influenced me.
Okay. Did you use libraries when you were in the service? Why or why
No.
not?
No, I didn't know where any were. I actually didn't know where any local libraries were, and Barnes and Noble was like 10 minutes from where I lived, so I just head down to Barnes and Noble and find something.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
Fine. I didn't, like I said, I was in the States, so I didn't feel like there was any much difference between being in the military and being a civilian. Like I said, I was older when I joined too, so by the time I got out, I was almost 30. Well, from active duty, I was, how old was I? Almost 29, so I mean, it wasn't like there was a big adjustment. I'd already been through college and all that. Like I said, I was here in the States, so it wasn't an adjustment for me. It was the same.
So you discharged from Seattle and
Mhm.
then immediately moved back to Illinois? Or?
Back to Illinois, yeah, I'm from Muhammad, so I was hoping to find a job, and then the economy crashed. Right when I moved back, the housing market burst, and so I had trouble finding a job. So I lived at home with my parents and just worked odd jobs for a couple of years until I started working here. I deployed to Afghanistan for a year in between, right before I started working here. And so, yeah, that's what I did. I worked at Barnes & Noble for a little while, and then I worked as a pharmacy tech at a couple local pharmacies for a while.
So you said you deployed to Afghanistan. Were you still part of the military?
Yeah, I was a reserve. After I did the active duty, I transitioned into the reserves for 4 years.
Okay.
I was stationed at the 822nd Military Police Company out of Arlington Heights,
Okay.
outside Chicago, in the suburbs. So I did that for 4 years. Wasn't originally planning on doing it, but then when I went through, you go through transitioning classes and courses when you're getting ready to go off active duty. I had one of those things is you meet with a recruiter for the National Guard and Reserves. And they were offering bonuses up to $20,000 to join the reserves or National Guard at that time. I'm like, I didn't have a job. I need money. So
There you
I
go.
took the bonus and did the reserves for 4 years.
Okay.
So I did that from August of 2008 until May of 2012.
Okay.
And then I went with my reserve company, was deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. So I spent 11 in Afghanistan.
So when you were with your reserve company, because now you've mustered out.
Right, yeah, now
Okay.
I'm off active duty. Now I'm just a civilian that does a weekend, once a month.
Right. So you're still in the reserve.
Right. I'm still in reserve, so I went to the reserves at that point.
Okay. So when your group deployed to Afghanistan in 2011, what were you doing there?
We were doing doing correctional work. I ended up doing, actually, funnily enough, I actually didn't end up doing that. I ended up doing regular MP duties. I did convoy security and quick reaction force duties. And I also did So I did that for about half the tour, and then for the second half of the tour, I did base security down Bagram Airfield. So ironically enough, I actually didn't have any correctional experience when I did my year. I was selected for whatever reason to do regular MP stuff. We had training in both, so that's what I did. I'm actually glad I got to do that. By the time I went over there, I'd had 4 years, or almost 4 years of working in a prison, and I didn't want to really do that for an entire year with detainees in Afghanistan. So I was actually happy to do that.
So what are some of the memories you have of your year in Afghanistan?
Very tired. Very tired. We did, especially when I was doing the convoy security. We do airfield security for the supplies that would come in. So we do missions from midnight all the way till 4 or 5 in the morning. Just sitting out on an airfield trying to stay awake, and then come back, sleep for a couple of hours, and then get up and do other escort duties for like going down. So we had the base that I was assigned to. We had there were FBI agents and DEA agents who worked with the local Afghani police, and they would require escorts, so we'd have to go escort them. So I was tired, exhausted all the time. That's for the first half. When I was in Bath was almost like a big city. It was actually pretty cool. I worked a much easier, well, I wouldn't say easier, but much more normal schedule. I worked a 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. So I was able to at least have a little downtime and got to meet local Afghanis more so than I did when I worked, when I was up where I was assigned before, because they had a lot more local Afghanis that worked on the bases themselves. So got to meet some, actual people from Afghanistan. But yeah, so that's mainly what I remember the most. And I was pretty lucky. It was pretty quiet where I went. I never had any combat experience when I was there. It was the areas that I was assigned in. It was very, very quiet, but it was stressful knowing that if you went outside the gate, you might not come back. But I didn't really think about it much after a while. It just kind of became like anything else. It was a job. You did it, and whatever happened, happened.
So, essentially, you weren't doing any kind of front line, exchanging fire?
No, I wasn't. No, that's not what we did. We weren't like infantry troops who went down and, kicked in doors, or were out in FOBs that were out in the middle of nowhere surrounded by, surrounded by like the Taliban and stuff. Some of our guys in our unit did. They were staged down south, so they dealt with a lot, or the ones who were dealt on the Pakistan border dealt with a lot more mortar attacks than I ever did. I never experienced. Well, I experienced some when I was on Bath, but you have to realize Bath's the size of like Champaign, Urbana. So I say like you're at Walmart or North Prospect, and there's something that happens here. You hear it, but you don't really experience it, and you kind of just move on with your day. So versus something that was a direct attack on you, which I never experienced, which was fine by me, not complaining.
How did you feel about witnessing casualties and destruction?
I never really saw any. Like I said, where I was at was pretty quiet. I was never engaged in any, like you said, frontline
type of
stuff like that. So I had no experience with that.
Did you have to? One of the recurring things we've seen in other people who deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq was working on an angel flight. Did you ever have to?
I didn't work on an angel flight, but I did definitely go to memorials. I went not for people who were in our unit, fortunately, thank God, but just for other units. So I definitely did go see some coffins, and stand there for the ceremonies as they were loaded onto the C-130s to come back to the States. Of course, it was a sad occasion, but that's part of the job we signed up for. So just thank God it wasn't me, or anyone that I knew. But it was always a sad occasion to go to those. Didn't go to too many, fortunately, but more than one was too many. So.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends while you were in Afghanistan?
Mostly calls. Did use Facebook a little bit, but mostly it was just long distance, telephone calls. Just had to make sure you kept the time difference. It was I think it was a 9.5 hour time difference between here and there, so we were 9.5 hours ahead. So you always had to calculate in your head what time was it back in the States when you were calling. So, but yeah, mostly I just used the phone. Like I said, a little Facebook, but not much.
And, before when you were talking about Seattle, you had stated that recreation was really just kind of hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
Video games, and
Right.
reading and stuff like that. Was that similar to your time in Afghanistan? Or
A little bit. When the first half, like I said, when I was out staged up where I was, we played Madden a lot. We had a lot of Madden tournaments. But outside of that, if you had any downtime, you were sleeping. When I got to Bath, I read a little bit more, but not much. Mostly I just would go, when my shift was over, I'd go get something to eat, take a shower, and go to bed. So I didn't really read, watched a movie every now and then, but that was about it.
So, reading in Bath, was it, was there a little base library? Was it
Yeah. Somewhere there was a little, very tiny library, one of the recreational centers that they had. They had like a movie. They called it a movie theater. It was just a projector on a wall, and then upstairs, on the second floor is where they had a little library, and it was where all the phones were located. So that's what I used that. But like I said, not much. I slept mostly if I had downtime.
Sure. Okay. And so what was coming home from Afghanistan like for you? That transition?
It was pretty quick. Sleeping was the hardest transition I think I had to go back, was just to adjust from the routine, especially the time zones that we went through. So I had a little bit of trouble just adjusting to the sleep. My body did to the sleep cycle, but otherwise than that, it was pretty much the same. Like I said, I didn't experience anything traumatic when I was over there. I just did the job and came home. So, and like I was older too. I was 32 at the time when I got back. So, for me personally, it was, besides the sleeping part, it was fine. I didn't really have any issues. Just moved on.
Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans, and if so, who?
No. I live 3.5 hours away from the unit. So outside of seeing them for training, I never really talked to anyone. I talked to a couple, it's just Facebook friends, but I don't really post on Facebook at all. So mostly I just see that. But like I said, I live so far away, it was pointless to even try, because people have their own lives. And like I said, it was 3 hours away. So.
And what about your regular Army unit? No,
I haven't talked to anyone. I talked to one of my friends once before, and as far as we were getting ready to leave, Alabuli called me as far as getting ready to leave to Afghanistan, and that was the last time I talked to anyone. Like I said, I wasn't really going there. I didn't really join to make friends or anything. I had some specific thing in mind that I wanted to do, and I also knew that I wasn't going to stay on active duty. And once you leave college, do you talk to your college? I don't talk to my college friends. People move on with their lives and they scatter to wherever they go. And like I said, I just wanted to do that one thing and did it and come back home.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
No, I'm not a member of any organizations.
So what have you done since separating from the military? You came back, you opted into the
Reserves. Mm-hmm.
Kind of bounced around, did a year in Afghanistan, came back, and now it's 2017, and how did you get from Afghanistan to here?
Well, I got a job here at the U of I. I applied. I used my veteran status and just applied for a job here at the library. Got an interview, got hired. I gotten married since then, and I've had a child. So my wife and I had a baby almost 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
As a veteran, have you used your local library? Why or why not?
Yeah, I go to Champaign Library. Not a whole lot, but on occasions I do. Yeah.
What's that experience been like, using it as a veteran?
Oh, as a veteran. Oh, I haven't used it as a veteran. I just go as a person. Yeah, I don't really think about even being a veteran much anymore unless someone brings it up. I go to the library because it's there.
As a veteran, are there programs or types of books available in the library that you enjoy more than others?
Like I said, I don't really read much about veteran stuff. I don't really. It's something that I did, and I've moved on with my life. I don't really, think about it much.
Sure. As a veteran, is there something that you wish you could change about the library that would enhance your enjoyment of it?
No. Yeah, no.
How did your military experiences affect your life?
I don't really think it affected it too much. Like I said, it was just a job that I did, and I don't really think it affected it personally at all. It was just a job. It's something I did, and I enjoyed it at the time, and just treated it pretty much as any other job.
Sure. What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
Oh, life lessons. Oh, sure. Patience. You learn patience a lot, especially working in a jail, dealing with people who don't want to be there, against their will. You learn discipline a lot. You learn, especially being deployed, you learn things that are just let things go easier, because it's just like, it's not life and death. There's nothing, it's really a world, unless you happen to work as a law enforcement officer or something like that, that can really just get under your skin. I can just kind of let things go. But I think the most thing I learned was patience, just patience, just dealing with people, and that was probably the biggest military lesson that I learned.
So, and kind of vaguely related to patience, you stated you went into the military because you wanted to be a police officer, and then
this. I got corrections. I got burned out on just very corrections. It's very stressful because you're dealing with, like I said, people who don't want to be there, who try to screw with you basically the entire time that you're actually in the facility. And I just was like, no. Once I got out, and once I did my year in Afghanistan, I was like, do I really want to go back in and do this, or do I want to do something that I would like more? And I've always liked reading. I've always been a big reader. And so I thought, well, why not give it a shot and see if the library is hiring locally? And so that's why I went into it. But I figured at least having the veteran status and having my college degree would help me get that far. But yeah, I got burned out just by the time I was ready to go off of active duty. I'm like, like I said at the time, I didn't even think about doing the reserves until the money situation came in, because I was just like, no, I'm just going to go do something that's a little bit less stressful, just a little bit more laid back. I'm kind of just done with it. I'm over it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And I did, because like when you're in the reserves, you just go up to training for once a month. You don't deal with anything like that. So that was cool. And then I did my year in Afghanistan, which was fine. By that time, I was wasn't as burned out with the whole experience by then. But once I got out and once I was done, I was just like, I just want to do something that's a little bit less stressful. This is a little bit of something that I would probably enjoy more, something that's more up my alley. And so that's why I came to, luckily enough, found a job at the library here, at the undergrad.
Nice.
Yep.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it all that much. Like I said, once I got out, and it's been 5 years, over 5 years since I've been out. I guess I probably think about. I don't know if I think about it more than any other person would. I just definitely know what it's like to be in that situation. That's not something you take lightly, or just throw well and let's go to war. I mean, I've been at the funerals of people who've been put in that position by, politicians and other ones. So I probably do think about it a little bit more probably, but at the same time, I know it sounds kind of contradictory that I also don't think about it because it's been, like I said, over 5 years, and I didn't have any combat experience, so maybe that changes it versus someone who has been in that situation. And so I know it's not something you take lightly.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear this interview?
I don't know if I have a message. If you want to join the military, join for the right reasons. Don't join because you think you're going to go on an adventure or you want to think it's like Call of Duty or something like that. Have a plan. Like if you want to go to college, that's fine. That's a good reason. But also know that it's a job, it's a way of life, and it's not like you see in the movies or on TV. It's hard, Just be thoughtful. Don't just do it because you want money or someone's offering you a bonus. To think, do I want to make this commitment? Because you can't quit. It's not like a job in the civilian world where if you don't like your job, you can quit. They have you for at least a minimum of 4 years. So you have to be able to make that commitment. And then if you still want to do it, that's great. You probably thought about it for the right reasons, but don't just do it because you saw something you saw it in a movie or something. Think about it and just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Okay. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview? And if so, what?
Nope.
No?
Nope. We're all good.
All right. Well, thank you very much.